Welcome back to Ask the Lawyer. I'm Carissa Farley. Joining me today is attorney Pete Losavio. Mr. Losavio is certified as an elder law attorney by the National Elder Law Foundation, a Louisiana board certified estate planning and administration specialist, and a Louisiana board certified tax specialist. He's a member of the Special Needs Alliance and is admitted to practice by the United States Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Let's talk about how the Medicaid system works some more.
Sure. The best way to explain the Medicaid system is by example. Let's talk about a hypothetical Mr. John Smith. Mr. John Smith worked all his life at the plants.
He did well.
He did well. Yeah. He's retired. This represents.
He saved his money.
He saved his money. He enjoys hunting, as you can tell. He enjoys hunting and fishing and camping. And
he's very active.
Yeah. Sadly, though, his wife of 55 years has passed away. They had 2 children. He owns his own home that he built over 50 years ago. He has a vehicle. He's got a hunting and fishing truck that he uses to pulls his boat and trailer. He's got his RV. He inherited a family farm from his family.
And he's got some money.
This represents $200,000 here.
Okay.
He saved $200,000, and he's got $1,500 a month coming in Social Security and pension. And he's just enjoying life, even though his wife's passed away. He's still out there at that age hunting and fishing and having a good time. And then he has a stroke. And of course, when he has a stroke, he can no longer stay in his home, and he has to go into a nursing home. Not where he wants to be, just where he needs to be. And all of a sudden, he has an increase of $4,000 a month, but that's the average cost of care in Louisiana. So if you take that over a year, that adds up to $48,000. Let's just round to 50. So now he's spending $50,000 a year. So here's $200,000. The first year, these 2 bundles of money represent $50,000. It goes to long-term care. The second year, another $50,000. The third year, another $50,000.
So his savings isn't lasting him very long.
And in the fourth year, the final part of his savings is gone. So now, in order to pay for his long-term care, he has to start selling assets. So he doesn't need his truck anymore because he's in a nursing home. Doesn't need his boat and trailer, so that's okay. Doesn't need his camper, so he sells that. Now he's still got the family farm that he inherited from his family, so he sells that. Now at this point where all he has is his personal vehicle and his home and $2,000 or less, the government's going to step in and start helping him. They're going to take his $1,500 a month and they're going to give him $38 a month personal needs allowance.
$38.
$38.
Which won't pay barely for 1 prescription.
Well, that $38 has to cover his disposable diapers, his optical needs, his dental needs, his non-prescription drugs, his toiletries such as soap, deodorant, shampoo, and other items that add to the quality of life.
So how's that going to work? Well,
as you can see, it's impossible to stretch $38 that far. So those 2 children are going to start paying for those items, and that's going to cost them several $100s a month, right?
The children that would otherwise have inherited that family farm.
Right. Okay. So as you can see in this situation, Mr. Smith, although he worked very hard his whole life and was a very prudent person and accumulated, because of a stroke, has lost everything. Now, doesn't have to be that way. With proper planning and advice, he could have saved his life savings and had it available to supplement his care. And rather than his children having to pay for his care, he could have used his life savings to pay for his care. Usually, they don't have to lose anything. If they take action timely, they can protect their life savings.
Now, is that done with a prenuptial agreement? If they'd had a prenuptial, does that protect the healthy spouse?
Well, no. Now, we're not talking about prenuptial agreements. Prenuptial agreements are used a lot of times they're good for protecting against creditors. A lot of times in second marriages, people use prenuptial agreements to prevent disputes between children of a prior marriage. They're real good for that. They're of no benefit in a Medicaid planning purpose, for Medicaid planning. So what happens in that situation is a lot of times is the older couple that's remarried thinks, oh well, this prenuptial agreement's got our finances separated and we don't have to worry about what happens to each other. The Medicaid system doesn't look at it that way. The Medicaid system looks at their assets as if they were together. They don't care about that prenuptial agreement. So what happens in that situation is that spouse can end up having to pay for the other spouse's nursing home expenses and become destitute. Now again, with proper planning and advice, that doesn't have to happen. But if they don't seek advice, they're going to end up spending a lot more than they should and jeopardize their financial security.
So what we're learning here is that this is highly complicated. This is complex, and not every attorney can do this. This is something that you really need to seek the advice of somebody who specializes in this area.
This is 10,000 times more complex than the federal tax law. And the reason I say that is there's 10,000 more regulations here than there is with the Internal Revenue Code. Plus, this is not just one law. You have the federal law, you have the state law, because this is a program that is administered by the state. So the federal law sets the broad rules. The state in administering the program can set their own rules. And then you have the Center for Medicare, I know it gets complicated, that has its own policy. So when you get to this looking at an issue, you're looking sometimes at 4 different rules and regulations.
So when I was looking at my own situation with my parents, I went to an attorney and I, at first did a will, and then I did a living trust and thought that I did everything right. I think my mother has a supplement insurance package, and I thought, well, we're all taken care of, and I'm beginning to see that maybe we're not. First, let's start with a will. Does the will need to be revised if somebody's spouse goes into a nursing home or they have Alzheimer's? Do they then need to look at their will and start there?
They need to immediately review the will, because in estate planning, it's usual for the surviving spouse to receive a usufruct, or in a lot of cases, they just leave everything to the other spouse. It's I love you will. Now, what's going to happen in that situation? You've taken those assets and you've given them to the other spouse. That spouse becomes ill or is ill. All that has to be spent down. The Department of Health and Hospitals treats the usufruct as a resource. So in that situation, because they treat it as an asset, that's what I mean when I say resource, the children's inheritance has to be spent down. So when you have the usufruct, not only does the parent end up being destitute, but the children end up losing their inheritance. So if you have a situation where one spouse becomes ill, you need to review the will to make sure and change it from having a usufruct or leaving everything to the other spouse.
So from what I understand, it's just a bad idea to wait until somebody's sick to do this planning.
Well, it's a bad idea because the way the Medicaid system is designed, they have a look-back period. That look-back period is 60 months, which is 5 years. And so they're going to look back over that period of time to see if you've made any transfers. If you've made any transfers, they're going to consider that in determining your eligibility for Medicaid.
I have to take a break right now. This is such an interesting topic that we all need to hear about. Stay with us right now. My conversations with Pete Losavio will continue when we come right back.